Even 200 years after his death, Napoleon Bonaparte is one of the most well-known figures in history, even to those who know little about the subject. For many, this knowledge boils down to two defining traits. He was a great conqueror, and he was short. The second trait, along with his aggressiveness, is so well known that it inspired the term Napoleon Complex, a popular belief that short men overcompensate for their lack of height through aggressiveness and domineering behavior. But was Napoleon actually short? Before I answer that, an introduction. This is History Defined, and I want to say welcome. Please like and subscribe below if you enjoy this video. This is part of our video series on historical myths. If you have a favorite historical myth, please let me know in the comments. So the answer to our earlier question is pretty straightforward, especially in the context of a series about debunking historical myths. Napoleon was not, in fact, short. He was of an average height. Based on the French pre-metric imperial system, he was 5'2". I know that sounds pretty short, but let me explain. I'm sure you're familiar with the metric versus imperial system debate. Today, only the United States, Liberia, and Myanmar still use the imperial system. During Napoleon's time, the imperial system was more commonly used and was in fact even more confusing and stupid than it is today. The system wasn't even standardized between countries. The French imperial inch was 2.7 centimeters, while the British imperial inch was 2.54 centimeters, which is the standard still used in the United States today. That would make Napoleon somewhere around 5'6". Of course, that would make him short today, as the average height in the United States is around 5'9", but he was of a perfectly average height for France at the time. So if he was of average height, where did this myth come from? Napoleon once said that history is a set of lies that people have agreed upon. The quote is longer and more self-aggrandizing, but the first bit explains a big part of our story. The real reason people believe Napoleon is short is a combination of reasons that make the whole greater than the sum of its parts. Napoleon wasn't just a great general for his uncanny ability to win almost every battle he fought. He was also well beloved by his troops, who followed him unconditionally thousands of miles from home into Russia, and later to his final defeat at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. Along the way, he earned the nickname Le Petit Caporal, which translates to the Little Corporal. It's easy to see how that nickname would give someone the impression that he was small in stature, but it actually came from a place of love. So why was he called the Little Corporal? One story goes that his soldiers gave him the nickname after the Battle of Lodi. It was his first campaign in Italy, and Napoleon found himself facing off against an Austrian army across a river near the town of Lodi. Victory depended on having enough firepower to cover his army while they crossed the river. Being a big believer in the hands-on approach, Napoleon put his experience gained from his first command as a second lieutenant in a French artillery regiment to use. He took on many quote-unquote lowly jobs, typically performed by junior officers, like sighting the cannons to ensure the proper range and firepower. Jobs like this were normally reserved for corporals, which led to many of his troops fondly calling him the Little Corporal. There are many conflicting versions of how he got this nickname, so we can't exactly say whether this is true or not, but we can be certain that the nickname didn't come from his small stature. It has been suggested that another reason that many people believed that Napoleon was short was because of the company he kept. Like most monarchs and emperors, Napoleon had his own imperial guard made up of some of the best soldiers in France. These men were often much larger and stronger than the emperor to more adequately protect him. This seems a little far-fetched, until you think about how often this happens today with celebrities. They hire big, strong bodyguards, who often make them look tiny in comparison. The portrayal of Napoleon as a short, angry man can also be largely attributed to British propaganda, particularly the work of British cartoonist James Gillray, who is often referred to as the father of the political cartoon. So if you're looking to blame anyone for these monstrosities, he's your guy. Gilray's caricatures of the French general were so damaging to his international reputation that at the end of his life, Napoleon reportedly said that Gillray did more than all of the armies of Europe to bring me down. Gillray first began skewering Napoleon in 1798 at the start of the French invasion of Egypt. He satirized Napoleon as a boisterous, fiery character, though not necessarily short. After Admiral Horatio Nelson obliterated the French fleet in the Battle of the Nile the same year, Gilray published the cartoon Bonaparte, hearing of Nelson's victory, swears by a sword to extirpate the English from off the earth. The cartoon shows Napoleon brandishing a bloody sword and wearing an extraordinary and extravagant uniform that just screams insecurity. He boasts about the many military victories he has already won, trying to overcompensate for the French Navy's defeat. Though not depicted as small in this image, the seeds were there for his later depictions. 5 years later, Gilray introduced the character Little Boney in the cartoon Maniac Ravings, or Little Boney in a Strong Fit, which depicts a small, bratty Napoleon throwing a fit, ranting and raving about the British. Funnily, this was based on an actual event that occurred March 14, 1803, at the Tuileries Palace in Paris. Napoleon berated British Ambassador Lord Whitworth in front of hundreds of guests. If the shoe fits, I guess. Soon, a short Napoleon became a defining factor of British cartoons, even outside Gilray's work. For example, in The Empress's Wish or Boney Puzzled, cartoonist Isaac Cruikshank depicts an angry Napoleon standing at around half the height of his wife and troops. Napoleon's response to cartoons like these only made the situation worse. It's reported that after some of Gilray's later works appeared, Napoleon sent a series of frantic letters across the channel demanding that the British government censor its press. Of course, the government ignored these requests, and I'm sure this only encouraged the press to keep going. The resilience of this belief over the last 200 years shows a lot about the power of disinformation, particularly in the form of mockery. A lot has been done to start wiping this myth from the public consciousness over the last couple of decades, which is a good thing. But it does make one wonder about other historical myths that may have a stronger hold. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.